Now, Daniel, I have an important question for you.
Yes.
Do you dare refuse my Batchall?
Yeah. You're what?
So this is a not a detailed review. This is a first impressions review of the new MechWarrior 5 game, MechWarrior 5 Clans, which I played about 3 or 4 hours of with a buddy last night. Um, so this is it almost qualifies as a new game, but I think that they were able to build it on the bones of MechWarrior Online and MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries.
Okay.
So while we played it on Game Pass, it's a new game that's only a $50 investment. So that's,
Hmm.
and I think it's because one, BattleTech is a fairly obscure brand these days, and also just, because they didn't have as high development costs because they're able to save some money in places.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, Now, for those of you who don't know, I would say that BattleTech is probably like my favorite general sci-fi settings because it's now some people say it's Game of War or excuse me, Game of Thrones in space with giant stompy robots,
Uh,
but the BattleTech series actually predates Game of Thrones. So Game of Thrones is fantasy BattleTech with dragons
uh.
and significantly more incest.
Oh, okay.
Not that there isn't any incest in BattleTech, because when you have a big shared universe like this, eventually somebody's predilections will come out.
Mm, yeah. Oof.
But the premise of this one is that the quickest way to describe it is in BattleTech, they have Space Rome, which was the Star League. Space Rome fell, and it split into these warring great houses. And the head of the Star League Defense Force, who had just reconquered Earth from a usurper, was presented with the option of, well, we can either split up because there isn't a Star League to fight for anymore, and all of these soldiers who have just spent years fighting and becoming the most honed fighting force in the inner sphere can go to their homes and just turn against each other, or we can take our chess pieces off the board, leave known space, and come back someday when we're needed.
Mm,
And and they went with option B, which resulted in them becoming the clans, who are a bunch of I would say that they're like what the Klingons think they are. The clans actually are, in terms
eh,
of being hidebound warrior race with a high obsession with honor.
yeah.
Like, you can fight for anything. Like you could literally have a quick trial of combat if you wanted somebody's I don't know. Hey, you wouldn't quite do it for somebody's lunch, but you can, like, it's very much like everyone's prickly, everyone will fight at the drop of a hat, but you're also trying to minimize how much like collateral damage you do
Yeah. Okay.
because they come from a fairly impoverished region of space. And what this story is, it's about a group of clan warriors, fairly unimportant in the larger scheme of things, who are part of the when they did decide to return to the inner sphere.
Okay.
So there's a few ways I can look at this. It's from a lore perspective and from a uh, gameplay perspective. Lore perspective, I thought it looked pretty good, but there are people who, honestly, my experience with this is mostly in the novels. Which, hey, guess what? If I'm reading about something in the novel, I'm not going to know that they gave characters the wrong costumes for certain events.
Yeah. Yeah.
So while I thought that they did a good job of capturing the flavor of the clans, other people who are more nitpicky about BattleTech than I am were taking it to task on Twitter.
Yeah.
I'll say that as somebody who, again, probably his favorite sci-fi universe, I wasn't too bothered by any of that. It does make you wonder why they didn't, give them the lore accurate costumes, but I'm not going to. hate the game because of it.
Mm.
What they did do is they definitely did a good job of capturing some of the eccentricities of the clans. Like what's funny about the clans is that they will on the one hand say, "Oh, we need to talk with a crisp, efficient way. We don't believe in contractions. They show that you're lazy." So early on in the campaign, the characters show up and they're training and they're using contractions. By the by the second mission, they've switched over to just saying like, "Oh, we are in place, Commander."
Yeah.
Things like that. So just, but at the same time, the clans also have a whole bunch of compound words that, like Batchall, which means battle call. So the clans are hypocrites. They're kind of hilarious that way.
Yeah. Ninja says, "Screw the clans."
Yeah. Oh, Ninja will get this out. We are playing as a smoke jaguar, so I have a feeling this is not going to have a happy ending for our main characters.
Uh,
But this is also funny because if you were playing BattleTech or MechWarrior back in the day, MechWarrior 3 was all about the successful efforts to wipe out the smoke jaguars.
uh,
So it's kind of funny to go back, but it makes sense to start at the start of the clan invasion because it's a fairly obscure series, and they had their big succession war game, which was MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries. So the logical place is to jump ahead 30 years and do the clan invasion.
yeah.
So far, the story seems to be fairly standard video game stuff. It's like so far we're chasing down a bandit king out in the periphery of space who has wronged us, and we haven't beaten him yet. Now, let's move over to gameplay. Uh, this thing made my computer cry. Thankfully, it was on Game Pass for both Xbox and PC, so I was able to switch over to my Series X, which ran the game rather nicely.
Okay.
A couple of little graphical stutters here and there, but frankly, by modern standards, a day one game that ran as well as it did is a accomplishment.
Yeah.
It is definitely a graphical upgrade from MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries,
Mm.
just from in terms of the terrain and effects and everything. They've overhauled the controls a bit in ways that confounded me last night, but I figured out this morning when a thought occurred to me. I would say this one might be better to play with a keyboard and mouse than controller, just because you have a lot of weapon groups to manage.
Mm. Okay.
Um, but I mean, it is still big, stompy robot fights, and uh, I would have said that it had a reasonable difficulty curve, except there was a boss in the last mission we played last night that was it was some sort of VTOL that basically ate enough damage to take down like a whole like five mechs.
Mm.
And at the end of it, only my buddy was still standing.
Oof.
So be ready for that.
Mm.
Bring big guns
Yeah. Yeah.
if you're when you're on the mission where you're doing the River Canyon,
Yeah. Okay.
which that doesn't make any sense to me. Like there really isn't a precedent for a flying vehicle like that in BattleTech, because if there was, why would you need battle mechs?
Mm.
But just from a gameplay perspective, it was also kind of brutal. But up until that point, I was mostly having a lot of fun. It multiplayer is enabled, so you can join up with your buddy and go kill some inner spheroids together and pirates and stuff. So now you might get a little confused if you don't know anything about BattleTech proper. And the computer that the game made cry had its. Well, let me look at my specs real quick. Don't know them off the top of my head.
Yeah.
This is the first game I've actually tried to play in a while that actually did make my computer unhappy.
Mm.
You could definitely hear the graphics card going or the
Ooh.
fans going.
Ugh.
Um, let's see here. This PC, yeah. So I am running 16 gigabytes of RAM, an AMD Ryzen 5 3600 core processor with a 3.59 gigahertz rating, and I have a GTX 1660 Ti. So I'm a few years out of date, but still it was like single frame rate or single digit frame rate at times.
All
So
right.
this is where plunking down cash for a PS5 or an Xbox Series X would probably do you some good if you want to play this game.
Okay. Oh.
But overall, I'd say that I am well satisfied with it as a lifelong fan of this franchise. There are things that you could take issue with it on the nitpicky level, but frankly, it's not like we're getting in all that many BattleTech things outside of playing the miniatures game anyway.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, and Ninja asked the question, how the hell can a VTOL take down an entire clan star? Yeah, that was the surprising thing. It was I eventually said okay, I'm pretending that this thing is a small dropship. That's the only way I can make this make sense.
Yeah.